This is the Mimix tutorial video for understanding the user interface of Mimix and beginning basic image segmentation. Once you've imported your image dataset, you will be able to view your image in 3 different planes, as you can see here within these 3 panels. You have your axial, coronal, and sagittal planes given from your image dataset. And each one of these windows, you can pan through the slices of that plane to be able to view the anatomy. Furthermore, if you would like to expand any one of these planes, with your cursor inside that window, you can hit the space bar and it expands that window, so you can look at your anatomy in closer or more detail. And to return back to the original window, you hit the space bar again. Furthermore, you should note that up at the top in a toolbar is where you have a vast majority of your image processing tools that you will be using. Furthermore, on the right hand side of your screen, you have also another set of panels, and in this you'll show your masks that you've made, the 3D objects that you generate from those masks, and any STLs. To start your image segmentation, you first want to define a mask. To define a brand new mask, you hit the New button over in the mask window on the right hand corner of the screen. And this allows a dialog box to appear. This dialog box represents the threshold of the mask based on a histogram of the Hounsfield unit values throughout the image dataset. The Hounsfield unit values represent the X-ray attenuation of the tissues in the data. So you can see you have values ranging from -1,000 Hounsfield units to 5,000 Hounsfield units. Tissues on the low end of the Hounsfield units represent tissues that do not attenuate X-rays very well, such as air. And you'll notice many of your lung tissues will fall down on this end of the scale, whereas tissues that attenuate X-rays very well, such as bone, will appear closer to the high end of the scale. You can slide your threshold back and forth, and you can see how more or less of the anatomy is highlighted by the mask based on their attenuation values. Once you're happy with the mask threshold that you've chosen, you can hit apply. Be sure to pan through all of the 3 planes to make sure that the anatomy that you want highlighted is highlighted, and to try to minimize excessive highlighting of tissue, where you could then mitigate by changing and adjusting your threshold level of your mask. Once you're satisfied with where your threshold level is, you can hit apply. And if you notice up here in your mask window, you have your green mask that we just defined. You also can turn your masks on and off, or make them active or not active, by hitting the eyeglasses. So the eyeglasses hides your mask, so therefore you can look at what the original image looks like, and then the mask that you defined on top of that image. Secondly, you want to start to crop your mask. So cropping will then get rid of maybe some of the extraneous tissues that were defined by the mask that you don't want in your final segmentation. So you now have your crop mask dialog box, which you can either manually define your X, Y, and Z components of your crop box, or you can just drag each side of the box and each plane to be able to define. You always want to err on the side of caution when cropping your mask, because there are other techniques you can use to get rid of extraneous anatomy after the fact, but if you crop out part of your mask in the anatomy that you want, then it's more difficult to bring it back. And I would also go through each of your planes to make sure that your anatomy is captured in your box throughout all of the slices that your anatomy exists through. And then once you're happy with how you've cropped your image, you can say OK. Now you can see the spine over here is no longer highlighted because it was outside of the crop box. Lastly, if you want to be able to look at your mask in 3 dimensions and all of the anatomy that it's defining, with your highlighted mask up here, you can hit Calculate 3D from Mask. When you go to Calculate 3D from Mask, you have your mask highlighted here in green, and you say Calculate. Once you do that, now you have a new 3D object that appears right here. And here is now your 3D object down here in this lower panel. You can use the middle mouse key to zoom in and out, and the right mouse key to rotate your object. You can also use the space bar to expand this window and be able to look at it in closer detail. So as you can see, you have your heart anatomy that's defined well in there, but you also have a lot of extraneous anatomy that is outside of the heart anatomy that you're wanting to capture, which can be segmented out for a variety of other techniques that will be covered in a later video.